It's time for another good idea, bad idea. Good idea. Saving up your money to get a Nintendo Switch 2. Bad idea. Complain about Switch 2 prices online. The end.
Alright, boys! It's time once again to start off WrestleMania!
Welcome back to DwreckTV. This is Dwreck, and it is part 2 for ranking WrestleManias. And now we go into the Super Nintendo era of WrestleManias. Much like how the first batch it had from the NES era and like the Hulkamania era of WrestleManias, guys like Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and the Ultimate Warrior, and even guys like Ted DiBiase and Andre and all the hard hitters, all the heavy hitters of that era were either leaving or just on their way out, and they were starting the next generation of stars. This era, you started seeing guys like Bret Hart become a singles guy, started seeing Shawn Michaels and his rise to stardom, and even guys that came in that were new were guys like Razor Ramon, and The Undertaker started becoming more prevalent, and even guys like Diesel, and even guys like smaller guys like Owen Hart, Jeff Jarrett, the 1-2-3 Kid, and a number of others. So, and this was what everybody calls the New Generation era. New Generation era is definitely more prevalent with the Super Nintendo than anything, but the WrestleManias during this time were, let's just say, some were pretty good, some were a little passable, but they were still enjoyable during this time. So, for WrestleManias 1 through 12, from 91, well, actually 92, because 91 was when the New Generation actually started with the Super Nintendo, and then going into 1992, and then into 96. So, how do these WrestleManias stack up to the ones that came before? Let's have a look at them, shall we? First up is WrestleMania 8. This was from 1992. It had the prevalent matches were the WWF champion Ric Flair defending against Macho Man Randy Savage, and the main event being Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice. For this WrestleMania, it was kind of off-putting because normally the WWF title would always be last, but this one was actually in the middle of the card, which to me I find very off-putting. Like, why would you ever have your heavyweight title, your main title of the company that represents the entire company, in the middle of the card, especially on your biggest show of the year? Like that, to me, that's very off-putting. Even with 225, but that's neither here nor there. But this WrestleMania, it was in I know it was in Illinois. I think the Hoosier Dome. I think it was Hoosier Dome. It was a big place, big dome and everything. Not like the Silver Dome or the Sky Dome, but it was pretty decent size. This was the rise of like Shawn Michaels was the boy toy, and they had like the Road Warriors made an appearance, and a lot of great stars like Tatanka. Bret Hart fighting Roddy Piper for the Intercontinental title was a real good one. That was like one of the one of the highlights of the whole night was definitely the Intercontinental Championship. And even The Undertaker taking on Jake the Snake Roberts. And then like Ric Flair fighting Macho Man, and even the main event being Sid Justice fighting Hulk Hogan in his quote-unquote last match. And even seeing the return of the Ultimate Warrior at the end of the night, trying to go in to save Hulk Hogan. But let's see, where do I rank WrestleMania 8 amongst the rest of the shows? It was a good show. I really liked it. I really enjoyed all the matches. Even though they weren't on the caliber of like say 3 and 6 or even number 1 and 5 or such. Like I said, it was a good show. But the one thing that really aggravated the piss out of me with this show was, just like with 5 and like all the others, Bobby the Brain Heenan would not shut the fuck up. Him and Gorilla Monsoon, I like them, but at the same time, I can't stand it because it gets to the point where it's like, I'm just waiting for Gorilla Monsoon to just say, "Shut the fuck up!" Just for that alone makes this WrestleMania a B. I put WrestleMania 8 on a B. The matches were like a solid A and everything. Solid A, solid Bs here and there, but the whole event of itself is just A because Bobby Heenan wouldn't shut the fuck up. Excuse my language, but I got aggravated with it. Next up is WrestleMania 9. WrestleMania 9 was the very first one that took place outside at the Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. Well, Paradise next door to Las Vegas, but you get the point. This one was actually pretty cool. It was the quote-unquote biggest toga party of all time, and the matches themselves were pretty good. They showed a lot of stars, especially stars that would become prevalent a lot around this era, like Bret Hart defending the title against Yokozuna, and even showed the narcissist Lex Luger and Mr. Perfect, and even Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels taking on Tatanka. So this whole show, they even had the Steiner brothers on this thing, which was actually pretty cool. And it was also the debut of Jim Ross, and Macho Man was on commentary and everything. So this night was actually pretty good. It was decent, but comparatively speaking to all the others, I put it at a B as well. It's not bad. This is definitely not one of the worst, but definitely the main event. What was really off-putting with this show was definitely the main event with Yokozuna and Bret Hart, where Yokozuna beat Bret Hart, but then Hogan came out to try to save and like try to tell him that Yokozuna cheated, but then Mr. Fuji wanted to challenge Hogan to fight Yokozuna, and Bret Hart was telling him to go get the belt, and Hogan wound up beating him in like less than a minute. So even though it ended on a positive note, but at the same time it was kind of very off-putting. So it's definitely worth a B. And especially Hogan was just on his way out to be going to do movies and such, and even his TV show. But then about a year later he shows up in WCW. But that's just another story for another day. But WrestleMania 9, everybody wants to say this is one of the worst WrestleManias, man. It's just because it's bad. It's just, shut up. This is nowhere near the worst WrestleMania I've ever seen. It's not the best. It's definitely a solid B. The matches were very entertaining. I would watch it more than most WrestleManias later down the line, but we're going to get to those. I'm going to rip them. Those ones definitely deserve the ass ripping that they're going to be getting. So yeah, I'm in for it. So next is WrestleMania 10. The 10th WrestleMania, 1994, in the same place where it all began, in New York City in Madison Square Garden. This night felt very special. It was cool because, like I said, it was back in Madison Square Garden, and having all the new generation stars show up and everything. The matches were really good. Excuse me. Especially the opening match with Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. Probably one of the best matches. Probably one of the best WrestleMania matches, like just straightforward wrestling. That was really good. Really good show. And then Yokozuna having to defend the WWF title twice. Once against Lex Luger with Mr. Perfect as the referee. And then finally the main event with Yokozuna defending against Bret Hart with Roddy Piper as the referee. This night was really good. I really enjoyed everything from top to bottom. But comparatively speaking, and this was also the first WrestleMania that didn't have Hogan, because he was on WrestleMania 1 through 9, and then he left and he went to go to WCW during the time. But WrestleMania 10 was very enjoyable. I recommend it and everything. But where would I put WrestleMania 10? It was definitely better than 8 and 9, comparatively speaking, but I put it at a solid 8. WrestleMania 10 is an 8. Not so much an S, but definitely one of the best matches on the whole show was the ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. That was nuts. The first ladder match ever that in WWF history at WrestleMania 10. That match was freaking nuts. But that was definitely like a standard bearer to what was going to be coming later on in the years to come when it comes to ladder matches at WrestleMania and even at SummerSlam. That was freaking nuts. But absolutely, WrestleMania 10 definitely lived up to its moniker. 10 years in the making, and absolutely one of the best WrestleManias ever. And next is going to be WrestleMania 11. This one took place 1995. I was 10 years old during this time. It was in Hartford, Connecticut and everything. A lot of people want to say this is one of the worst WrestleManias ever. And I watched it, and I gotta say, it was enjoyable. I really liked it. The matches were good. The Intercontinental title with Jeff Jarrett and Razor Ramon was decent. The Undertaker fighting King Kong Bundy was decent. The whole show was pretty decent. It was enjoyable. I liked it. It wasn't the best, but it was definitely not the worst. I'd say the best match on WrestleMania 11 was Shawn Michaels fighting Diesel for the WWF title. That one definitely showed that Shawn Michaels was ready to become world champion, but he just couldn't do it against the 7-foot Diesel. But it was really good. Even Bret Hart's match with Bob Backlund, the I Quit match, I really liked that one too. But the thing about everybody wants to talk about was Lawrence Taylor fighting Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event. I will say that should have been like the semi-main event and everything, but everybody wants to complain about it. Lawrence Taylor can't wrestle, man. He actually showed some moves. To be quite honest, he showed more moves than most football players that become pro wrestlers. But this was his only match, and it was actually pretty good. He was decent. He wasn't the best, but he was actually decent. Like I said, more decent than most former NFL players that were going to be in pro wrestling. But that should have been the co-main event. Shawn and Diesel should have main evented this WrestleMania, but I liked it. It had and they had a whole bunch of celebrities on it. They even had Jonathan Taylor Thomas from Home Improvement and The Lion King, and a whole bunch of others. So where would I put WrestleMania 11? I'm gonna go on a whim and say it's an 8. WrestleMania 11 is an 8. Sue me. WrestleMania 11, really good. Not the best, but definitely not the worst. Don't make me laugh. The last and finally is WrestleMania 12. The whole hype for this one was the 60-minute Iron Man match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. That match, the whole night was really good. Everything from even Roddy Piper and Goldust going all over town and then finding their way back to the arena was nuts. The Undertaker fighting Diesel was great. Probably one of his best matches. And then finally capping it all up with the main event of being 60-minute Iron Man match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. The two biggest stars of this generation finally fighting in the main event of WrestleMania. And these two were Iron Man. This was a showcase of the absolute best of the generation. And that's absolutely one of the best matches ever of WrestleMania. Where would I stack this? I would say WrestleMania 11. 12. I'm sorry. WrestleMania 12. S rank. Especially with the 60-minute Iron Man match, Shawn and Diesel fighting The Undertaker, and even the carnage and the mayhem of Roddy Piper and Goldust going all over Los Angeles and fighting them back. That was freaking crazy. But WrestleMania 12 was great. S rank, especially with the Iron Man match. There you have it. WrestleManias of this the new generation. It kind of started off a little on the B side and everything, but by the time we started getting they started hitting their stride, that's when they really started to excel. Especially with guys like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels going on all cylinders, and everybody else like the Click with Diesel and Razor, and even the 1, 2, 3 Kid and Hunter Hearst Helmsley and everything. The Undertaker and Jeff Jarrett and Yokozuna and Lex Luger. This was a pretty... Everybody wants to say the new generation was one of the worst generations ever, man. If you go back and watch some of these matches, some were alright, but when you get to the main stars and everything, they was firing on all cylinders during this generation. This generation was exciting on all counts. Guys like Hogan and Savage and like the Warrior, they couldn't keep up with most of these guys. Probably Savage, but you know what I mean. These guys, this really was the new generation of the new WWF. But yeah, that's all I got to say about this generation of WrestleMania. Now, stay tuned for tomorrow where we get into the Attitude Era. So y'all gonna want to be seeing all that, what I got to say about that. So, see y'all tomorrow. This is Dwreck signing out. See y'all on the flip side. Cans of marmalade.